What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Week 15 NFL Power Rankings show. We've got just a month left of football, which means playoffs are just around the corner, which means playoff predictions on this channel are just around the corner. And beyond that, NFL draft content coming soon. So if you are not subscribed already, if you enjoy the video, do make sure you go down below, click that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the NFL content we've got heading your way. And while you're down there, if you could do me a huge favor, please just take a second to hit that like button. It actually really helps me out. Super easy. I appreciate it. Thank you in advance. And let's get into the Week 15 rankings. Starting at the very bottom here, the number 32 spot, the Houston Texans, who put up a hell of a fight against the Dallas Cowboys. Enough so that I am going to remove that tier gap between them and the rest of the teams in our bottom tier, the cellar dweller tier. It does go to show you that this team, even when they are super feisty, a couple things go their way, it's still not enough for them to win, just not enough talent on either side of the ball. But hey, showing that big of a fight, almost beating the Dallas Cowboys, who are, as of last week, a top-tier team in the league as a 17-point underdog, a tip of the cap. We're going to remove that tier gap. Then we have the Chicago Bears at 31 on bye this week. Not much really to add on them. Let's move on to number 30. The Indianapolis Colts are actually going to drop down one, only because our next two teams I have some nice things to say about. The Colts were on bye this week. The last time we saw them, they put up the most embarrassing quarter of football, maybe in the history of the league. 33 points to the Cowboys. I still think they're scrappy, but I just have a little bit more energy and positivity about our next two teams as we move forward. So the Denver Broncos at number 29, climbing all the way up to number 29, +1 this week. And it's obviously been a season where there's not a whole lot to write home about for the Broncos. And this is still a season that might result in a one-and-done year for Nathaniel Hackett. But before Russell Wilson is, scrambling, trying to make a play for his team, right in there in that game in the late third quarter against the Kansas City Chiefs, he gets concussed, goes down to the ground again, trying to make it a play for his team. And throughout that game, it really felt like Russ looked something like his old self and found a little bit of that magic in there. And a big part of that was the connection he found with Jerry Jeudy that was really explosive and kind of a breakout game for him. So looking for positive things to say about the Broncos where everything's been so negative. But I think they're showing that there's reason to believe they could bounce back next year. If Russ is playing like this, they get Jeudy, Sutton, and some of those pieces back offensively who have been hurt this year. The defense has been really good. It's not, I think, their entirely effed outlook that I think a lot of people are painting. It has not been pretty. They have a lot to figure out, but some of the flashes are there. So +1 for Denver. And then the LA Rams at number 28. Now, their season's cooked, right? This has been everything we've talked about. They are not a good football team. They've bottomed out after going all in, all that. But in a year like that, for them to still have one of the most special magic moments that any team has had on the season as a whole, Baker Mayfield comes in with 2 days of preparation to get to know his teammates and the playbook, comes in and balls out. That was the best Baker has looked in years, which is just crazy. Like, this was legitimate quarterbacking that we saw from Baker Mayfield in his rookie season. So it's one game. We don't want to overreact. Was it a fluke against a bad Raiders defense? Certainly possible, but I do think this is really a match made in heaven, not just for Baker Mayfield, who needs a career rejuvenation with a coaching staff that can get him back on the right track, but the Rams need a cheap insurance plan for Matthew Stafford, who they just don't know what his future is going to hold injury-wise. So it really just makes a lot of sense. So fun to see, and I can't wait to see him play again on Monday Night Football this week. And then the Arizona Cardinals at number 27. Now, I hope I didn't jinx this by dropping our Kyler Murray merch, the Size Matters Not apparel line. Now, I've got the TFG sweatshirt on. I do want to let you guys know, if you want to support the brand, rep the brand, if you still want to get the Kyler Murray merch, which is honestly a sick concept, even if he just probably tore his ACL. Fingers crossed that they can maybe get some good news on that, but it did not look good. Their back was already broken in Arizona, a team that had no positive trajectory. And then for that to happen, maybe not even going to have Kyler to start the year next year, just terrible. I still think rank ahead of some of these other teams. They got playmakers offensively. They make some plays defensively. But that's really all that there is to say about the Cardinals. This just sucks. But let's move up to our next tier here. And these are 5 teams that, to me, whether they're in the playoff run because their division sucks or they got a hot start or whatever, they're just bad football teams. You can throw your record at me all you want. You can throw the playoff percentages all you want at me. But these teams just lack what it takes to consistently compete moving forward. So that's going to start with the Atlanta Falcons at number 26. Now, I am very excited to see what Desmond Ridder can look like out there. That's really all I have to say about the Atlanta Falcons, who are coming off a bye week this week. Their outlook, like I said, they are in the NFC South picture technically, but I do appreciate, even if it's coming a little bit late here in the season, for them to look introspectively and say, look, we're not a good team. Let's see maybe what this kid has so we can start thinking about the future of this team a little bit. Then we have the New Orleans Saints at 25, also on bye this week. They blow that Monday Night Football game and have to sit on it for 2 weeks, which just really hurts because they'd actually, I think, be in first place in the NFC South had they won that game. So we'll see how that locker room can respond. And that's really all I have to say about them. And then the Cleveland Browns at 24. So I gave them a massive jump a couple weeks ago when Deshaun Watson came off of the suspension. I thought this offense would look really explosive and that this team would kind of start to figure out their upside. That is a Super Bowl potent team, at least on paper. And man, it has not been pretty. Deshaun Watson straight up has not looked good, and you can't even argue it. He's been worse than Jacoby Brissett was. He's holding onto the ball way too long. He's not playing in structure. He's taking sacks. Ugly interception this week where he's late throwing it to the corner. And I'm not going to act like I'm upset about that, but obviously from the Browns' perspective, they expect more from him to come out prepared and look like he knows the offense after plenty of time to sit there and think about it. And it has not been pretty. So we know he's talented. It's 2 games. He hasn't played in 2 years. There's definitely time for him to start playing better, but how can you not be a little bit disappointed with how Deshaun Watson's played? And it's not just him. I think that defense is just really soft. I actually want to tease a video I've got coming out this week. I'm going to be breaking down some of these Fangio coaching tree disciple teams with some of these defensive coordinators around the league that are just not cutting it. And the Browns, Joe Woods just is one of those guys. So there's the Browns dropping down 6. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers going to get a -1 this week. Now, don't want to overreact because Kenny Pickett did get hurt. And I do think they probably win that game with Kenny Pickett. As you see Trubisky come in, throw 3 red zone interceptions. But on top of that, this is a team that punted on 4th and 2 on the Ravens' 45-yard line, kicked it straight out the back of the end zone. They missed an important field goal late. That was a win that they very much could have had and should have had as Huntley leaves this game with a concussion. The Ravens are down to a quarterback that can't really complete a pass, and they still aren't able to find a way to win that game. So they deserve a -1 here this week. And then the New York Giants at 22. Look, man, the Giants have not beaten a real NFL team in 7 weeks. They have not been competitive. The injuries are piling up. The run game has fallen off. Teams are catching on to the gimmicky play calling that they had to lean on early on, the play action boots, the jet sweeps. And again, when you don't have that run game with Saquon Barkley to lean on, everything starts to fall apart offensively. They've got holes defensively. Number 44, McLeod, feels like he's getting cooked every single week. So, look, Giants fans, you want to sit here and get mad about the 22nd ranking here and say I'm a Giants hater. Just keep doing it, man. How's that worked out for you the last 7 weeks? All I will say is that it has been a super pleasant surprise for this Giants team. Treat this like house money. It does not look like they are going to be able to win 2 out of 4 games and squeeze into the playoffs as a 9-6-1 team at this point. That feels very unobtainable for them. They are in good hands. Brian Daboll showed he can coach. I think they have a good new GM in charge. They've found some young pieces to build around, and it's just they're running out of steam. They really are. They were a 7-point underdog against the Eagles, and they got smacked. That game was over at halftime. Okay, but before we go to our next tier here, I got to tell you guys about my new friends at Underdog Fantasy. So I used to play those salary cap daily fantasy contests all the time, but I lost interest because there's so many people playing. It's hard to win, and even when you do win, you're not always winning that much money unless you're in like the top 1 percentile. Well, Underdog Fantasy and their daily pick'em contests have gotten me right back into fantasy football. You guys have probably seen the screenshots going around Twitter where you get to pick anywhere from 2 to 5 player props, talking about receiving yards, rushing yards, field goals, interceptions, and you get to pick over or under. You're parlaying those together, and if you hit, you get huge payouts as big as 20 to 1. You can also buy insurance so that you're allowed to miss on one of those picks. I've loved playing Underdog Fantasy. You can load it up for a crappy Monday Night Football game like the Patriots and the Cardinals, and unfortunately last night it wasn't great because I had Kyler Murray's over, but in general, you're going to get an increased interest in any football game that you want. You can put $2-3 on these contests, and the payouts are up to $30-40. So it keeps you interested in these games. The payouts are huge. It's super fun. I've loved it. I know you guys are going to like it. So if you're interested, head to Underdog Fantasy, and when you sign up, make sure you use promo code TFG at signup. That's TFG at signup. You'll support my channel, and they will match up to $100 on your first deposit at Underdog Fantasy. All right, now into our third tier. This is the potentially frisky teams that I think have a little bit of life, playing pretty good football right now, that I wouldn't want to play if I was counting on a win to seal a playoff spot, for example. And that's going to start with the Carolina Panthers at 21. You know, they showed just that, beating the Seahawks this week. They haven't lost a game in 3 weeks. They beat the Broncos a couple weeks ago, the bye week. Now they go into Seattle and win. That is no small feat. We know Seattle's a pretty good team this year. And it's just interesting, man. The offensive line's really good. They have a great run game. A very underrated run game because it's led by Deontay Foreman that no one really takes seriously, but they got a bunch of maulers up front. They're a team playing with nothing to lose, but the playoffs aren't out of sight because their division is freaking terrible. So that's fun. Sam Darnold is playing pretty good. Like, that's fun. And defensively, they have their holes, but J.C. Horn playing the way he's playing, I don't think I've given him enough credit on this channel. So Panthers fans, there you go. He's awesome. Brian Burns can make plays. So they're just an interesting team. They've been wildly inconsistent, but for them to be sitting here having fun and competing and maybe, you know, trying to be in the mix for the playoffs after firing their head coach this year, could be a hell of a lot worse. Then we have the Las Vegas Raiders, who are actually going to jump up a spot despite the crazy choke of a loss against the Rams. Now, this team is actually playing good football over the last 5-6 weeks, and I think they deserve credit for that. Now, they're really only climbing up because the Browns have looked so much worse, and I overreacted to them getting Deshaun Watson back, so I don't want to oversell this. But it is a last-second loss on a short week. In general, the offense has been working. Devontae Adams has looked like the best receiver in football for the better part of the last 5 weeks. And hell, their defense showed up this week too. So until, you know, the very end when they didn't. But, you know, I think they're doing some nice stuff and building for next year, if nothing else. We'll see if they can remain competitive, though, after a long week to sit and think about the fact that ended their playoff chances. Then the Jacksonville Jaguars at 19. This is the dream for the Jags. You know, they get out to that hot start. They looked incredible and then really fell off the face of the planet. But now they're kind of back to that team that I fell in love with in the first 3-4 weeks of the season. And the biggest part of that is the way Trevor Lawrence is playing football right now. I mean, My goodness, he is a surgeon. He's reading defenses, the arm talent, the accuracy, the anticipation to hit some of these second-level throws. It is truly special. He's making plays in big moments. You just got to love it, man. So that's huge for the Jags. And you know what? They beat the Tennessee Titans this week. This thing is not entirely done for the Jags this year, but if nothing else, you get Ridley back. I would bet that he is going to make a big impact next year. But for this year, no one wants to play this Jags team right now. Their offense is really humming. And I know you might say, oh, but they barely put up any points against Detroit. Well, they had like 5 huge drive-killing drops in that game among some other weird things. Trust me, this Jags team can move the ball right now, and that matters a lot. Then we have the Green Bay Packers at 18. They're getting to move up one spot as well because the Browns are just really bad right now offensively. But, you know, the Packers get a couple things to go their way this week. The Seahawks lose, the Giants lose. They're sitting at about like 10% chance to make the playoffs. Schedule remaining is, you know, would it be the craziest thing in the world if Aaron Rodgers went on a run? No. And if they do, I think they probably actually make the playoffs, which sounds crazy. They're playing better football lately. The offense has really come on. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs getting back. Defensively, though, we know that Joe Barry is quite possibly the worst coordinator, offense or defense, in the NFL right now, and that's probably going to cost them one of these games and seal their fate. But I think this team is an interesting team to keep an eye on at this point in time. Okay, then we have our next tier up, and these are, to me, unserious fringe playoff teams. Teams that are in that position to make the playoffs, and teams that I think have a good chance of sealing the deal on that. So that starts with the Washington Commanders. This defense is really what it's all about. You get another week to maybe get Chase Young back into the mix, and I really like what they're doing on that side of the ball. Taylor Heineke's going to do his thing. He's going to make some mistakes. He's going to make some big plays. That's their formula. It's polarizing. Sometimes it'll work. Oftentimes it won't work. But in the state of this NFL, putting them about 16, 17, it adds up. Then we have the New York Jets at 16. You know, this defense put Josh Allen in hell. But, man, they struggled to move the ball with Mike White initially, and then Mike White gets hurt after he started to heat up a little bit. The injuries for the Jets have just been really tough this year. They really have. But you got Zonovan Knight running the ball well. They are a defensive team, right? They're going to try to play great defense, keep the score down, do enough offensively. For them, it's very similar to Washington, so not a big gap between those guys. And then the New England Patriots at 15, they're going to drop down 2 spots here. They take care of Colt McCoy and the Cardinals. It is fun to see this rookie class make such an impact. We've seen Marcus Jones, Jack Jones, another good game from the looks of it in Monday Night Football. They get Pierre Strong, my number 3 running back in this draft class, out there. He looks insanely explosive, a guy that I said has shades of shady coming out of South Dakota State. Tyquan Thornton. They do some fun stuff. The defense, I mean, my goodness, why were they not using Josh Uche before now? Maybe he figured something out, but he is adding a spark to this defense. They have some fun stuff. They just don't have that it factor about them as a team. So another team that rides things pretty close to the belt, and 15, 16, 17, really pick your poison. Then the Bucs at 14, getting demolished by Brock Purdy and the 49ers. I mean, this team is so tough to talk about. Where do we even want to start? I mean, the offense has continued to have their really just inconsistencies, never seem to be on the same page with Brady and these receivers. Brady is missing throws that he has traditionally made. The pass protection, unable to let Brady be comfortable in there. Defensively, it felt like they were turning a corner, but this week, not so much. I mean, the Rack Bros and that Niners explosive offense really had their way with the Bucs defense. So they got Tom Brady. We've seen him have some clutch moments. We know that's something they're going to be capable of. This defense has mostly played well this year, so they will have better games than they just did against the Niners. But obviously, frustrating to see them get manhandled by a real playoff team in the Niners. Then the Seattle Seahawks at 13, they drop another one now. And, when they lose, it's not necessarily ugly, but you lose to the Panthers, a team that we didn't have crazy expectations for coming into the year, and a team that we know their defensive talent is really not good, especially up front on the edge, unable to really get a pass rush going, and it just puts too much pressure on a secondary that has a bunch of backup caliber guys back there as well. So it's just tough, man. You're asking Geno Smith to do a lot, and sometimes this year he's been able to do that and pull these games out. The Raiders game, he puts up 40 points. But this week, throws a couple interceptions, pushing a little bit too much, and they fall short. So it's tough. I'm really not trying to dog on Geno. He's been incredible, but he is showing that he's made some mistakes, and you're putting too much pressure on him. That's really all I have to say about it. And I am a little bit worried that the Seahawks might be running out of juice and could be falling short of the playoffs here. They got to play the Niners on Thursday Night Football, and I do not feel good about this team's defensive chances of slowing down Brock Purdy and those guys right now. Then we have the Baltimore Ravens at number 12. Very impressed by their defense this week. Granted, some of those were Mitch Trubisky just throwing the ball to them. But to persevere and win that game when you go down to your third quarterback, the one thing I really want to say is getting J.K. Dobbins is big for this team. We know they want to run the ball, and I really trust this defense, but they have had no element of explosiveness. Those backs have just been bad, no way around it. You look at Kenyon Drake, no explosiveness there, really, at all. So to get J.K. Dobbins in there, some big runs, that is exciting. And a big win for the Ravens for the second week in a row. They're finding ways to keep these games alive until they can hopefully get some of these guys back healthy, which is impressive team football to me. Then the Tennessee Titans at number 11. A couple of really rough weeks in a row. Getting smashed by the Eagles, getting beat by the Jags. Their pass defense has not been very good in the last couple weeks. So Vrabel's going to have to continue to make adjustments and figure this thing out. I think he's capable of it. Offensively, I still think, they've found their mojo. They're not a great offense, but Chigo Okonkwo, Derrick Henry. I think what I'm saying is there's brighter days ahead for the Titans. A couple of rough losses in a row, but it is obviously also not great to know that a defense that we viewed as one of the best in the league is getting picked apart by Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence, and that's not going to be a sustainable way for them to win, and that's why I don't see them winning a Super Bowl if this defense is looking like this. Then at number 10, yeah, that's right, the Detroit Lions haven't been brought up yet. The Lions in the top 10, I think for the first time in the history of this channel. So Detroit fans, welcome. You made it. Welcome to the Big Boys Club. I'm so happy for the Lions. I'm happy for Dan Campbell, for Jared Goff. This is well deserved. They've been through it. They've endured was a well thought out, well executed plan that's all coming together. You're seeing the line play really show up. It's helping them offensively, defensively. Jared Goff, I want to re-mention him. He's playing great. This is the former number 1 pick in the draft with a rocket arm who's just been so inconsistent throughout his career, but he's comfortable. He's playing with a ton of confidence. He's got receivers now with Jamison Williams back healthy. DJ Chark looks like his old self. They've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, this is a legitimately explosive offense with one of the best offensive coordinators in the league who dials up new confusing play calls every single week. And again, a young defense that's flying around doing what they can. It's not a great unit, but they make some plays and like I said, do what they can. So the Lions got a lot of crap. How is this team a 2-point favorite, 2.5-point favorite against a 10-2 Vikings team? Well, they stuck it to them. They beat up the Vikings and won. And right now, they're in a prime position, actually, to make a playoff run. It sounds crazy, but with the Seahawks losing, the Giants losing, I think they can do it. And no one wants to play the Lions right now. They're a team that plays with nothing to lose. They're playing with house money. They got the Rams' first-round pick. Go get it done, man. I love it. But now we have a tier jump up into this next tier is going to be my Super Bowl maybes. Teams that I definitely have some hesitation on if they can put 4 straight consistent playoff caliber games together. But if they did and got some lucky breaks, teams that I think might actually have Super Bowl upside. Now, that's going to start with the Miami Dolphins, and there's no way around it. Tua's got to play better. If Tua's playing like this, if he's playing like he did last week, this team can't win a Super Bowl. It's just not going to cut it. We can sit here and debate all we want about Tua and how great of a season he's had, and he sure as hell has had a great season. And I've had my share of apologizing to do, but he has regressed immediately back to the guy that we thought he was coming into the year in these last 2 weeks. And it is what it is. He can't play like that, period. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Have teams figured out the Mike McDaniel offense? Has Tua lost some of that shine? Or can they get back to it? We'll see. Then the LA Chargers are going to jump up to the number 8 spot. I think that was a huge statement win by not just Justin Herbert, because that was remarkable. That was one of the best quarterback performances of the season, picking that defense apart, throwing tight window throws, showing that if you give him some time to throw, let him push the ball downfield, and give him guys like Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, who is just awesome when healthy. It is so big to get him back. They can really hurt you in a lot of different ways with that passing game. But Brandon Staley deserves his respect in this game. I mentioned we've got a video coming later in this week drilling a lot of these Fangio disciples for playing soft off-zone coverage and not playing defense like you want to play defense. Well, on Sunday Night Football, the Chargers ran press coverage, they blitzed, they played aggressive, and they played like they want to play some damn defense, maybe for the first time in the Brandon Staley era. And I love that Staley is swallowing his pride a little bit, changing his scheme. He's shown flashes of this the last couple weeks, and I've hinted at that on this channel. But that was on full display this week with that game plan against the Dolphins that Mike McDaniel just was not prepared for. So that's big to have a potential turning of the guard with the coaching staff that we just have not perceived very highly for the Chargers. Then we got the Minnesota Vikings at number 7. Honestly, they shot themselves in the foot a ton in this game, and I'm not trying to take that away from Detroit. Detroit moved the ball. They made plays. They deserved to win that game, but that game is a hell of a lot closer if they don't fumble a ball on the goal line, if they don't have a complete busted coverage early in this game that goes for a touchdown. TJ Hawkinson drops a big pass on third down. That is the equivalent of a turnover, dropping a ball on third down that results in a punt. They made some big mistakes that they haven't necessarily made this year, and I don't want to overreact to that for that reason. Now, what I'm really worried about with the Vikings is this exact thing we keep talking about. The Fangio-style defense, the soft zones, bend, don't break. Well, you're bending and breaking, Ed Donatel. So I'm looking at you. I'm looking at Joe Woods, looking at Joe Barry. We got a video coming out this week. Looking forward to it. But it ain't working in Minnesota. It just ain't working. Then we have the Niners at number 6. And we were a little bit hesitant on them last week. Anytime a team goes down to their third quarterback, you're going to want to see a little bit more to know if the guy can play and if the team is in a position to win with a third-string quarterback. And if any team can plug in a guy like Brock Purdy and still be a Super Bowl contender, it is the Niners. I loved Brock Purdy at Iowa State. I really did. But that lack of arm talent was just so apparent. It's why he ended up as Mr. Irrelevant. And it's why he still just doesn't have this crazy high upside as a quarterback. But in San Francisco, where they've built this perfect offense around a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, go back to what I said about Purdy coming out. I said he's got some Jimmy Garoppolo in him with the quick ball handling and the ability to just distribute the offense, get on the move, extend plays on third down. Very, very Case Keenum-esque. We saw Case Keenum in a perfect situation on the Minnesota Vikings go on a run to the NFC Championship. I think it's possible. I really do. Purdy is playing excellent. Did get bailed out from an interception before half that didn't show up in the box score with a pretty soft penalty. But love what I'm seeing there, and we know this defense can absolutely torch offenses. So love the Niners. Still think they can win a Super Bowl. Are they a top-tier team with Brock Purdy? I still need to see a little bit more, but I like where this team's at. To rank 6th with a third-string quarterback is a testament to Shanahan, this team, and to Brock Purdy. But let's talk about our top tier, and these are our Super Bowl favorites. The same 5 teams as last week with a different order. The Dallas Cowboys, I mean, after you almost lose to the Texans, you just deserve to be at the bottom of this tier. We know their upside is really high, but there have been certain inconsistencies with their offense. There really have, whether it's Dak, inconsistencies with the play calling. They do lose Terrence Steele this week as well. They just have little moments of hiccups. I think defensively they've shown some vulnerabilities as well. So, I still think they're a Super Bowl contender, but they lost their luster a little bit this week, to say no less. Then the Kansas City Chiefs at number 4. They are going to climb up from 5 to 4. But I will say my concerns about this defense that I've voiced last week still hold up. I don't love their pass rush. I think they have holes in the secondary. The run defense is non-special. So it's just, you're putting a ton of pressure on Mahomes. And in this game, Mahomes throws 3 picks. He has made some mistakes lately. I think he's kind of letting the MVP out of his hands the last couple weeks. We said it was his award to lose, and if he keeps playing like this, I think he might lose it. Now, hold that thought a little bit. I mean, he still made some incredible throws, but if you're talking about a statistics thing, it gets really nitpicky when you get into the MVP conversation. I don't mind him pushing and pressing when he's making some of the plays he makes. So I still think he's the best quarterback in football. Let's not act like I'm trashing Mahomes here. I'm just talking about the MVP debate. But, it's really about the defense with the Chiefs that I would have reservations on. But they're a top-tier team and definitely in a position to win a Super Bowl this year. Then the Buffalo Bills at number 3. Impressive week yet again. The offense is just kind of a juggernaut, man. Josh Allen, the stuff he does, the play where he's hurdling and helicoptering through the defense, just so crazy. But to see this defense light things back up this week, Gregory Rousseau stepping up in the shoes of Von Miller, who is done for the year. That injury announcement is killer, but this team is so well coached. They have so much talent offensively. The Diggs-Allen connection is special. So Buffalo rolls on. And then the Cincinnati Bengals are going to come in at number 2 this week. Eagles fans have been so mad at me. To be fair, we are pretty far removed from me saying the year they won the Super Bowl before that year started. We're pretty far removed from one of the best calls I've had on this channel where I said bet the Eagles at 66-1 to win the Super Bowl. So I'm not an Eagles hater, Eagles fans, but if you're new, you might think that I'm overlooking them. This week, they, to me, officially earned this number 1 spot, dominating the New York Giants. And Jalen Hurts, it's just, I keep waiting on him to make mistakes, to show a hiccup, and it's just not happening. I mean, the Packers game, flawless, crushes the Titans last week, crushes the Giants this week. He, to me, just might be your MVP favorite right now as we talk about Mahomes maybe losing it. So we know this team's super complete. They're kicking ass. They're taking names. They are the best team in football right now. But the Cincinnati Bengals, we got to talk about them just a little bit. They take care of business against the Browns. Kind of a monkey to get off of their back. The Browns have given them fits. They lose a couple players defensively this week, which is unfortunate. We'll see what... I haven't heard any news on Mike Hilton. It looked serious. Trey Hendrickson's going to be down a few weeks. So they're already down Chidobe Awuzie. Teams can only suffer so many injuries, especially when you don't have ultra-star talent to make up for that. But for the most part, Joe Burrow continues to play incredible levels of football, and the run game's been great. They make things difficult up front defensively. I love that DJ Reader, BJ Hill combo. They force you into third downs. They get aggressive. They blitz. They mix up coverages. The Bengals do so many good things, and I'm still quite high on that Cincinnati team. All right, there you have it. There are the Week 15 power rankings. Really hope you guys enjoyed. I do want to remind you, if you want more of my analysis, check out my podcast. I have a second channel in the description below for the Fully Inflated Football Show. You can also search just that, Fully Inflated Football Podcast, on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you guys on Wednesday there for the game recap show. Thank you so much for listening. Please do hit that like button if you enjoyed. Make sure you're subscribed for more great NFL content coming your way. And we'll see you later. Peace out.